Welcome to the FF Forge. My name is Steve, and it is time to look at the NFC Divisional round matchups. This is a preview show. We will look at some of the factors like the amount of plays run per game, specifically in the passing attack and the rushing attack, the defenses and how much they allow other teams to do these things, how teams typically attack those defenses in a couple of categories: yards per average, touchdowns, and then just a couple of factors like field goals, turnovers. This is not a super in-depth preview, but it is an overhaul to kind of get an image of what we expect this game to look like, where the advantages and disadvantages of the teams will be. And I will go over a couple of the my suggestions if you were to want to bet on the game as far as over-unders goes, which team I think will win, and my prediction for the game, as well as some X factors on how usually the underdog will be able to win this matchup this week. Before we get into that, let's just do a quick recap of how I did in the wildcard round, and I did pretty good. All in all, I went 5 of 6 as far as just getting the correct team, the winning team. But let's just look at how I did for the NFC games. And the first game was the San Francisco 49ers beating Seattle 41-23, and I predicted that San Francisco would win 33-17, so about a touchdown off on each side of the ball there, which means that the over that I suggested to bet still hit, because there is even more points than I expected. I think I pretty much got the game flow correct on that one, however, so really proud of myself on that. And then San Francisco, I also would have suggested to be betting at minus 10-point favorites, so I went 2 for 2 on the bets there. Now, last week, I didn't do as good of a job as I should be doing this week as far as proclaiming my bets, especially in the NFC video. Kind of recognize that. Did a little bit better on the AFC video. I will make my bet clearly known in this video. Some of these bets I didn't specifically state in the previous video, and some of them I may not have gone I think in favor of my betting, so in disfavor of how I'm going to rate myself. I may have suggested to either go against the grain of how I had it predicted, or more likely in that scenario, I would have just said I don't want to bet on the plus and minus favor for the game. But this is going to be one of those games, and that's going to be the New York Giants, who beat Minnesota 31-24, and I predicted Minnesota would win 30-20. However, like most of the population, I definitely thought that the New York Giants could win this game, and that's where I don't think that I would have suggested to be betting Minnesota at -3 on this game. However, I did imply that in my final score there, 30-20, and I never said anything other than that. So if you were betting based on what I presented in that video, that's how you would have bet, and so I would have gotten that wrong. However, I did say to bet to the over in this game, and it did go over. So we were good there. 1 for 2 on my bets for the New York Giants versus Minnesota game. Then Dallas beat Tampa Bay 31-14 last night, and I predicted that Dallas would beat them 27-13. So I think very close there in the end, and it really looked like I was about to hit that perfectly. But I did not recommend betting the over-under in this game. I was a little bit too torn on all of the ways. I thought Tampa Bay could crush Dallas. I thought Dallas probably would crush Tampa Bay, or I thought this could just be a competitive game one way or the other, high scoring, low scoring. I thought it could go so many ways, so I didn't feel comfortable betting on the over-under in that game, and I did have Dallas at -3 correct, so I went 1 for 1 on the bets there, which means that I went 4 for 1 on all of my NFC bets, and I got 2 of the 3 games right. That is it for the recap. Let's move into the divisional round matchups. The first matchup is going to be the 6th seeded New York Giants going into the 1st seeded Philadelphia Eagles home, where Philadelphia's 7.5-point favorites and an over-under of 47 points for the game, which means that the implied totals for this game right here are going to be 19.75 points for the New York Giants and 27.25 points for Philadelphia. I'll cover in the end who I would bet as far as, no, I have it highlighted right here. So Philadelphia at 7.5-point favorites, I would take. I do believe that they will beat the Giants by 7.5 points or more. I also would take the under in this game, and it's very close. I almost want to say I wouldn't bet on this game in the over-under, but I'm going to stick with it. I'm going for the under on this game. It's very close though, because if you look at my prediction here, that's 50 points. That's more than the 47-point over under. But I was very close to having Philadelphia win 20-17 in the end of this game. I mean, very close. It was neck and neck between those two scores for this game. This is a case where I am going to statistically, I think that the 47 points is a little bit high for this matchup. And so I'm recommending the under as far as odds go. But my ultimate prediction is the over. Take that for what it's worth. On to some of the factors in this game. And as far as the plays per game goes, the New York Giants are ranked 14th, Philadelphia is ranked 5th, and the defenses are pretty much similarly ranked, which when we take the average of the offense versus the other team's defense, this is what we get. 63.7 plays per game, or plays in this game is the expectation for the New York Giants. Philadelphia is 64.6, so about 64 to 65. I think a whole play here for the purposes of this gives me enough faith that I'm thinking that Philadelphia should be able to control the game offensively. When we look at these two teams overall here, we're going to find that they are fairly similar, but Philadelphia just does everything a little bit better just in terms of how they attack the other teams and in terms of the strengths and weaknesses of their defenses. That's going to be a pattern that we see, I think, in like every matchup this weekend. So I think a lot of cool matchups to look forward to. Looking at the passing attack of these teams, we will see that neither one passes the ball a whole lot. New York Giants offense is ranked 25th. Philadelphia's is ranked 23rd. However, defensively, there's a little bit more of a difference there. And all in all, this ends up being a point in favor of Philadelphia for passing attempts per game. That comes to 31.8 for the New York Giants, 32.7 for the Philadelphia Eagles. Pretty close there. Then for the yards per attempt, we're going to see this is where there's going to be a big difference. This is a 1.2 point difference with Philadelphia's first ranked offense in yards per pass attempt versus the 13th ranked defense in the New York Giants, top half there at least. But on the other side of the ball, the New York Giants offense is ranked 23rd, and they're going up against the best defense. That creates quite a separation as far as the effectiveness and explosiveness of these passing attacks. A definite point in favor of Philadelphia. Then on the effectiveness of these offenses, finishing drives, as far as that goes, Philadelphia is going to get the point in their favor here as well. Passing touchdowns per game, they are only ranked 15th in the league, and the New York Giants defense is quite good, ranked 9th in the league. However, on the other side of the ball, New York Giants offense is even worse, 24th, near the bottom of the league as far as the offensive passing attempts, passing touchdowns per game go, versus a very similar defense in Philadelphia, ranked 10th. All in all, this does just give a 20%, we'll say, but a 1.4 versus 1.2 passing touchdowns per game difference. So not a huge advantage, but an advantage nonetheless. Then when we look at the rushing attacks, we're going to see Philadelphia is going to continue to take the advantage. New York Giants don't have the advantage anywhere in this game. New York Giants rushing attempts per game is ranked 8th, whereas Philadelphia Eagles is ranked 3rd, going up against the 17th defense in the New York Giants. So teams do tend, the Giants let up a lot of rushing attempts, and obviously Philadelphia runs the ball a lot. On the other side of the ball, Philadelphia's defense is much better at teams don't attack them through the rushing game as much. They are ranked 5th, going up against still a team that likes to run the ball a lot. So that's definitely going to be a point of contention for the New York Giants if they want to win this game, will be staying out of those third down situations, getting to third and shorts and being able to convert. And it's going to be kind of the exact opposite on defense. For them against Philadelphia are going to be some two big keys to the game. Third downs for the New York Giants on both sides of the ball will be big. Once again, ultimately here, this is going to be about a 1 rushing attempt per game on average favor for Philadelphia. So it's not a huge spread there, but in favor nonetheless. As far as the yards per rushing attempt go, Philadelphia Eagles are worse on offense. They are ranked 13th, whereas the New York Giants are ranked 5th. However, the New York Giants defense is almost the worst in the league as far as the yards per attempt allowed goes, whereas the Philadelphia Eagles defense, not a whole lot better, ranked 24th. However, that disparity is much larger than that offensive disparity, and so the Philadelphia Eagles end up getting a point in favor here at 4.9 yards per attempt average we would expect for them in this matchup, whereas the New York Giants are going to be at 4.6. So a little less efficient. Either way, both things that these teams should run the ball well against one another. When we look at finishing drives on the ground, both teams top 5 as far as rushing touchdowns per games go. But the Philadelphia Eagles are ranked first, whereas the New York Giants are ranked fourth in the league. And defensively, Philadelphia Eagles defense just a little bit better, ranked 16th compared to the New York Giants, 20th in terms of the rushing touchdowns allowed per game, which leads to a 0.6 per game rushing touchdown lead here for Philadelphia, despite what looks very similar there. 1.4 rushing touchdowns per game. They're in first by a mile. Point in favor of Philadelphia here by over a half of a touchdown expectation there. Then as far as the field goals go, it's much closer here. Very close. Not very close, but quite close here. 1.5 average field goals would be the expectation in this matchup, and 1.7 for Philadelphia, 1.5 for the New York Giants. So slight lead in favor of Philadelphia for the expectation for field goals in this game. And in the turnover department, Philadelphia is one of the better teams in the league as far as the turnover margin. They have a plus 0.5 turnover margin on average per game. New York Giants aren't shabby at all either. They are in the plus at a plus 0.2. So this is something that both of these teams are good at, not giving the ball up compared to how often they take the ball away from their opponents. But this is a definite point in favor of Philadelphia nonetheless. So this is an area in the game where the New York Giants need to make sure not to make any errors that Philadelphia can take advantage of like they have all season long. So ultimately, the X factors in this game are going to come down to the quarterbacks on offense and defense here. So defensively, it's coming down to shutting down the quarterbacks. And I think one of them's a little bit harder to shut down than the other, but they're both great quarterback rushers. And so if Daniel Dimes could take the team on his back and do his best Jalen Hurts impression, I think that gives this offense the best chance to win this game up against a very good opponent in Philadelphia. Like I said, defensively, they need to shut them down, and I do have an opinion on how the New York Giants defense could do this. Now, I don't know their personnel inside and out on defense. I don't even know it incredibly well. So specifically, which player they might want to use, especially in this, this could be tweaked a little bit based on their personnel is all that it is. But ultimately, the main thing is that on about a third of the downs of the game, depending on exactly, how the game goes, I would think that the New York Giants might benefit from having essentially 2 guys on a spy on the quarterback, 2 of 3 players specifically in maybe a special set of plays specifically for this game that they draw up. And what that would look like to me would be the 2 or 3 guys would be either the middle linebacker and an extra safety. So they are a 3-4 defense. I would, in this game, oftentimes have it as a 3-3, kind of lined up, though, in a 4-2 front for the front 7. So a front 6, but with then an extra safety in the game, so 5 D-backs, and have that safety pretty much down in the box. All of these, the outside linebackers, a middle linebacker, the guy hopefully calling the plays for the team and making some of these decisions based on what he's seen from the offense and calling players off or telling them to be the spy. A safety and one of the outside linebackers on every play. 2 of them would be in a sort of a quarterback spy type thing. And ultimately, this defense would want to play probably more conservative. As far as I know, they're a pretty aggressive defense and play a lot more contain with surprise plays of blitzes coming, surprise moments where they get very aggressive and try and take advantage of that. But to try to keep Jalen Hurts from not hurting you in the rushing attack and only getting 2 or 3 yards on most of his carries except for when he breaks a tackle or something like that, and also to just play contain on the quarterback and force him to throw from within the pocket. Don't let him get outside of there and create some of those angles, because you're going to have a zone pretty much anytime you have two guys spying the quarterback. You're going to be in zones on defense, and so especially if you're allowing him to have some time, you don't want him to be able to find the angles against those zones, much less. The less, he's probably going to have some time. So you're going to let up some chunk yards throughout the game. But I think this takes that Philadelphia offense off of their game plan, puts an extra faster big guy in the box at safety. Or maybe one of their linebackers would be the better guy for that spot. But it allows him to play back, because this is also an offense that yards per average, best in the league, that can gouge you for big yards. And so you want to allow some of that to happen at the expense of, or at the expense of playing that type of defense. That would be is something that you'd allow to happen. And then you just got to keep them out of the end zone, ultimately force them to kick field goals. That's my idea of what they need to do, is just a little bit less aggressive maybe than they've been normally, because I don't think if they're blitzing Jalen Hurts all day that's going to go well. I think he'll be able to run away from a lot of that and get some huge gains on the ground from his feet and get out of the pocket and find somebody wide open down the field anyways. So that's my thoughts, and ultimately I don't think that they're going to be able to do that. I don't know that they'll even think of that specific game plan or not. But ultimately, I have Philadelphia winning 30-20 against the Giants. Let's move on to Dallas versus San Francisco. I have the 5th-seeded Dallas Cowboys going to the 2nd-seeded San Francisco 49ers home, where San Francisco is 4.5-point leads with a 45.5-point over-under. And so with that gives us an implied point total for Dallas of 20.5 points and an implied point total for San Francisco of 25 points. I would take San Francisco as the 4.5 favorites in this game. I have an expected range for this game of anywhere from 17 points to 61 points. And I'm kind of thinking that this game might end up being a field position battle, as I have in my X Factor. So I'm going with the under on this game. Of course, it could very easily hit the over, but just like the New York Giants versus Philadelphia game, I'm going with the under here. Hopefully I can continue last week's streak. We'll see. As far as controlling the clock here, the teams are very similar. Dallas is expected to have 63 game plays in this game, whereas San Francisco is expected to have about 64 plays, 0.6 play difference here, very close. I am going to give the nod to San Francisco and the department of potentially being able to control this game offensively. As far as the passing attack goes, passing attempts per game, Dallas is going to take the lead here. Their offense is only ranked at 19th. This isn't really where either of these teams excel. It's not their focus offensively. And San Francisco's offense is even worse, ranked 27th, going up against a little bit of an easier matchup against Dallas as far as how teams attack them. Teams seem to attack them with a pretty balanced attack overall, but San Francisco's defense is ranked 24th, so even worse. So definite point in favor of Dallas for the passing attack, which means no lead is going to be safe for San Francisco. This is an area where Dallas could come back against San Fran more easily than the other way around. Now, as far as the yards per attempt go, however, this is definitely in favor of San Francisco, although the Dallas defense does do a better job. They're ranked 7th versus San Francisco's defense being ranked 11th in this category. San Francisco's offense is very good, and they are ranked 2nd. Whereas Dallas's offense is still good. They're a top 10 team, but ultimately this leads to a 0.3 difference in the average yards per passing attempt, with San Francisco at 7.1 and Dallas at 6.8. So this would be a big spot for San Francisco's offense. Can they maintain this as an advantage for them against a quite good defense in this category in Dallas? That's somewhere where Dallas could flip the script of this game a little bit if they can prevent that. And I have an idea for how they could do that as well. Now, moving on to the touchdown category, and it's very close here. We have two top 5 ranked offenses, 5th for Dallas, 4th for San Francisco, going up against a top half of the league offenses. Defenses. The San Francisco's defense, however, is better, ranked 8th, whereas Dallas's defense is ranked 15th. So ultimately, the passing touchdowns are in favor of San Francisco in this matchup by a fraction, literally by 0.1 passing touchdowns per game in this game is the expectation, the expected advantage. Now, looking at the rushing attack, as far as the attempts per game go, once again, San Francisco is going to get the advantage here. Their offense is ranked 9th, whereas Dallas's is ranked 5th, much better. However, defensively, this is where Dallas is going to need to do well because San Francisco's rushing defense is very good. They are ranked 2nd as far as rushing attempts against them per game, so teams really don't try to attack them through the rushing game a whole lot. But Dallas, I think, is going to. I don't think it would be smart for them to abandon the rushing game. I think they're going to want to at least attempt to establish something on the ground. They become too one-dimensional. I think it's going to make it a little bit easier for San Francisco to tee off and win the turnover battle. But it's much to the opposite as far as Dallas's defense. They're ranked 23rd, so that ultimately leads to an advantage for San Francisco. Then as far as the yards per rushing attempt department goes, San Francisco once again is going to get the average. Their offense is better in this department, ranked 9th, whereas Zeke probably is a big portion of this. Yards per attempt for the Dallas rushing attack is only at 19th. And once again, San Francisco's defense is ranked 2nd in this category, so it's going to be hard for Pollard to find some holes to make some of those big explosive plays. But if they can get that working, that would be important. I do think that they should lean on the Pollard rushing attack in this game and just keep Zeke fresh for those 3rd and shorts and goal line type carries. On the other side of the ball, San Francisco's offense ranked 9th, going up against the 17th ranked defense. So as you can pretty clearly see there, advantage in favor of San Francisco. And that's by nearly a full yard per rushing attempt. So definitely in favor of San Francisco. Then as far as the rushing touchdowns go, however, we are going to get a pretty healthy lead here in Dallas's favor by about 20%, 0.85 rushing touchdowns for San Francisco versus 1.05 rushing touchdowns for Dallas. So the expectation in this matchup would be that Dallas will get a rushing touchdown. They are ranked 2nd in the league this season in that department, but going up against a good defense, the 8th ranked defense as far as rushing touchdowns allowed. On the other side of the ball, however, Dallas's defense allows even less rushing attempts, touchdowns per game, ranked 3rd, but San Francisco's offense also very good in that department, ranked 5th. So really a battle in this game for these two teams. As far as the field goal department goes, special teams, we just saw Brett Maher really stink the bed, and I have that really impacting this game that influenced my final prediction. But season long, this is still going to be an advantage for San Francisco. In this matchup, we would expect them to have about 1.8 field goals, so probably 2 field goals, whereas Dallas, we're really only expecting them to get 1. Dallas is, I think, going to need to be able to trust him, and I don't know that they will, and that is part of the reason I almost have Dallas winning this game. I have it very, very close. As far as the turnover battle goes, the turnover margins, these are the 1st and 2nd ranked teams in the league. San Francisco, the 1st ranked, in the plus of 0.8 in the turnover department, whereas Dallas is in the plus 0.6. So very close. Not by any means a disadvantage for Dallas, but San Francisco does get the point here, and that's why I just kind of wanted to point that out, that it's not like Dallas is pretty good in this department. Now, looking at some of the X factors for this game, I do think that this is going to be a field position battle, and I think in any field position battle, it's going to come down to field goals in a big way. Currently, I just would have more faith in San Francisco's special teams as far as making those field goals over Dallas, and so much to the extent that Dallas may try to go for it in some fourth down situations, kind of like they did last week in that game, where they normally would just kick that field goal. And if they can't get the touchdown in those situations, then that's going to definitely be the difference in this game, quite potentially. I shouldn't say definitely, but very possibly would be the difference in the game. As far as Dallas's defense goes against San Francisco, I do think that they're just going to need to be disciplined. They're a very aggressive team, and San Francisco is a very counter a defense oriented minded team, coaching wise especially. That's how he coaches. And so if they get overly aggressive, they're going to get taken advantage of, they're going to get beat. So I do think that they need to be as disciplined as possible in this game, keep things in front of them, and don't get beat deep. Of course, that's always important, but that's going to be especially important in this matchup for a defense that is usually rather aggressive. That will help to keep them in the game and keep this close in that field position battle, because otherwise San Francisco could run away with it just like they did last week. As far as the touchdowns go, San Francisco needs to be able to finish their drives. This is a department that both teams are pretty good at as far as limiting the other teams from getting their touchdowns. Most importantly for San Francisco, they need to be able to finish their drives and get touchdowns off of them to prevent this from being a close game where Dallas could end up getting that touchdown to win it 24-23. What was the other score I had? Like 17-16 if San Francisco can't get those touchdowns. Something like that could easily be a final score. Ultimately, I do have San Francisco, the better team, winning this game 23-17, but I really like these matchups for the NFC. I think they both could be blowouts, Philadelphia and San Francisco, but the other teams do have definite chances for upsets in these games. So excited for the NFC games. Look forward to the AFC video coming out soon enough. Thank you. Peace out.